what popped me, Skeener? Out of nowhere comes a crashing 747 Jey Uso onto Logan. And then the camera is like, I'm done. It was incredible.
And now we're back here 14 years later with John Cena as a heel who has quote unquote sold his soul to Dwayne.
She's also a looker. She looks the part. Let's not gloss over the obvious right now. Her Instagram is popping. Welcome to the Lariat Lounge, everybody. This is the home of smart takes, hard hits, real talk. This is episode 12. I'm your host, Everson Godfrey, with co-host Andrew Skeens. Skeener, we had a big weekend. We had Smackdown. We had Money in the Bank. We had Raw. There were some things we got right, some things we did not get right. What are you thinking, brother? How you feeling?
I don't know who you're speaking for, but I went 4 for 4 in my predictions. So
did you really?
I did. Maybe not exact. The results 4 for 4. Maybe not exactly how I thought they'd play out, but yeah, I went 4 for 4. So
you know what? You probably did. You probably did. I'm sure. Actually, you know what? Now I'm thinking about it. Men's Money in the Bank, women's Money in the Bank. Who is it? Cena versus. Damn. Why am I forgetting right now? Who did Cena wrestle?
It was Cena and Logan against Jey and Cody.
Oh yes. Okay. Right. So that ended the way that ended.
I think we all picked that one.
Yeah, and then
I was the lone Becky Lynch pick, I believe.
Oh, maybe you. I think you were. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you did go 4 for 4. Okay. So I'm speaking only for myself then. That's fine.
Fine. I was a little tongue in cheek when I say that. But as it was unfolding, I was pretty excited to have it on record that I was 4 for 4.
Well, you were on record.
Sure, my prediction perfection won't last through the next event, but I'll enjoy it while I can.
Listen. I swung for the fences. I think you were right about some things, obviously right in the sense of the outcome, but you were also right with regard to why those outcomes mattered. And I think my heart of hearts was genuinely hoping that WWE was going to take the opportunity to place someone in the picture that may not already be in the picture, but they had different plans and that's fine. But listen, I don't think that anybody left Money in the Bank disappointed because it was a great show. SmackDown was great and Raw was great. But we won't know if you thought that those events, those PLEs were great unless you get in touch with us. Skeener, how can people get in touch with us if they want to let me know how bad my picks were, how great your picks were, and if they thought that these shows were the same way that I thought these shows were?
You can hit us up at the Lariat Lounge at gmail.com. Inbox is open. Always wanted to hear your thoughts, want everyone to get involved. You can also find us on social media on Instagram at the Lariat Lounge Podcast, throwing posts and stories up all the time. Really want to make it a collaborative space, get everyone involved. And look, if you send us some good thoughts or any thoughts, really, we'll bring them up on the show, discuss them, kind of respond to them. Communication lines are always open here and wanting to get you all involved and make this a big community. As we've said before, everyone's welcome in the lounge. So come on in, pull up a stool, and let's get down to business.
I hopped over and I checked out the Instagram the other day. I like what you're doing over there. I handed it over to you. And I poked my head in every so often to just check some things out. But I went through and I was checking through the stuff the other day, and I like what's happening over there. And I have reason to believe that it is helping to draw engagement. If you all did not know, which maybe you would if you listened to last week's episode, if you listened to the bonus episode that went up after we did the Big Ten, and if you listen to our friends over at Ring Rust Radio, actually, I don't think the episode is aired yet. I think it's probably going to come out.
I think today. Maybe?
It might come out today. If that turnaround is quick like that. Yeah, it may come out today. But yes, so we crossed 100 downloads overall over the weekend. I think we hit like 102 on Saturday.
That is
And
100 unique downloads, correct?
102 unique downloads. So every time one of you beautiful bastards listen to this podcast, it counted for one listen. So every extra listen that you may do on a single episode will only get counted the first time you listen to it. So that's 102 unique downloads as a Saturday. I think we passed that over the weekend, and I haven't checked it this week, but it's Wednesday, so I haven't checked any of those numbers yet. But we're steadily climbing. I think we're hitting an average of about 8.5 unique downloads per episode if we're splitting the average up over all of the episodes. So that's not a bad average. And my hope is that as we continue to progress and we continue to put out content that you all enjoy and want to listen to, that we'll continue to get the love and support from all of you just by listening and tuning in to listen to Skeena and I talk. So we appreciate it. We thank you all. But hey, as we always say, enough with the fluff. Let's get to the stuff. So Skeena, I want to start. Let's start with Smackdown. We might as well walk through Smackdown into the PLE and into Raw. Because like we said last week, Money in the Bank has quickly become one of the more consequential PLEs that you can count on each year. And you can count on it to have significance to the story moving forward for the simple reason that the Money in the Bank ladder match has stakes, and those stakes have real value and real consequences for stories moving forward. So watching SmackDown on Friday and watching Raw on Monday are very consequential, and you should watch those things. So I think that unlike most pay-per-views or PLEs that we get through the year, watching or talking about SmackDown, then the PLE, and then Raw in order makes a lot of sense. So let's start with Raw. Now, we don't go item by item on the show. We'll talk about what we feel is important. I'm going to tell you something that stuck out for me, Skeens, watching SmackDown. So I took some notes. I always try to take some notes, particularly around PLEs, because I want to make sure we touch on certain things. So first thing I want to do is just get something off my chest. Okay.
Let's hear it.
The entire SmackDown tag team division versus the Wyatt Six. So this is the thing that you run into when you do something like the Wyatt Six, or you do something like Bray Wyatt, or you do something like The Undertaker. And listen, you're an illustrious company there, but when you do angles with acts that are like this, that are kind of supposed to be a bit spooky wooky and supposed to be a bit terrifying, you have to do something drastic in order to make for some sort of reasonable counterbalance to the supposed threat that this group or person is supposed to represent, right? So I thought that it was a good thing. It was a positive that they took the Wyatt Six promo and then almost immediately jump over to what appeared to be the entire SmackDown tag team division, right? All saying that they need to essentially put their differences aside in order to combat the Wyatt Six. So I thought that was a positive move to attempt to make. However, unless you're willing to sacrifice your entire tag team division to the Wyatt Six, I don't see how this positively impacts anything that your tag teams have moving forward outside of how they're going to contribute to making the Wyatt Six seem relevant. You tell me what you think.
It's just, it has not been what I needed it to be. And I've been pretty critical of the usage of the Wyatt Six and the SmackDown tag team division. And to me, this is just kind of smashing together those flaws. I think it's good in a sense that we're at least, like you hit on, portraying the Wyatt Six as such a huge threat that, all these teams have to kind of get together and, put their differences aside and fight off the bigger threat for the bigger good. And the jury's still out for me. We'll see where they go. But, like, is this going to get to somewhere with a payoff? Because, again, I'm thinking, like, we're getting the esoteric promos and cut-ins and messages from the Wyatt Six. But are we going to pay it off with any? Or is this just going to be the same old, same old? And I know I probably sound like a broken record to our listeners here. I sound like a broken record to myself, but I feel like I'm watching the broken record on TV every time this happens. And again, it's just like we're doing the same old stuff. And I'm gonna wait and let it play out, but it's tough for me to get super invested right now because I haven't seen this payoff before. So I don't necessarily, even though I have a lot of faith in WWE and a lot of other stories, this one is just not there for me yet. And I'd be lying if I said anything else. And I want to like the Wyatt Six because I loved Bray Wyatt, but it's just not doing it for me right now. So where are you at with all this?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I have the same sentiment about the Wyatt Six. And it's just me being completely honest, right? I don't know if I want to like the Wyatt Six. I genuinely don't. We have affectionately referred to them as a Bray Wyatt cover band. And I think the title is apropos. I think it fits. But WWE has not placed the Wyatt Six in a position to make me care about the team as a whole or any of the moving parts within. They've kept them off of TV for so long. And mind you, like we said before, whether it was injury or not, right? You kept them off of TV. So much so that the tag team division, in whatever state that it's in, left them behind. In my mind, the hype surrounding the Wyatt Six came and it went. When I saw them on TV, when I saw the promo, I just heard the ramblings. And it's just one of them things, man, where you take an idea that is supposed to be maybe equal parts gritty, equal parts real, equal parts spooky wooky, equal parts terrifying. And like we said before in a previous episode, right? That contract of kayfabe that we are supposed to buy into, part of the fine print in that is the willful suspension of disbelief, right? I am offering myself up to disbelieve my own eyes when I look at certain things in service of the story. So I'm willing to do that if the story that you're giving me is one that adequately lets me buy into it. There's nothing here that makes me buy into the Wyatt Six being some sort of threat from their admittedly awesome entry into the WWE zeitgeist, right? But was also equally impossible to pay off, right? Chad Gable clearly wasn't dead. Clearly all those people were not beaten to a pulp like that backstage. We know this because they came immediately back. It was a cool scene, admittedly, right? But it's one of those things where if you're going to go there, brother, you got to go there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to commit to something that is wholly different than what you are putting on the screen on a regular weekly basis. Bray Wyatt did that to a certain extent. The Firefly Funhouse was almost essentially a world outside of wrestling, right? Where he could exist and do the things that he did, and we could separate ourselves from the part of ourselves that are consuming professional wrestling as a product, right? And it allowed for him to thrive in a space, honestly, that I think worked out better for the character of Bray Wyatt than The Fiend did translating onto screen in matches. We spoke about that before, right? It seemed like that whole character was absolutely amazing, but where the ball sometimes seemed to drop was actually in the wrestling matches. And it wasn't because Bray couldn't wrestle. It wasn't because the people who he was wrestling against weren't good. But how am I supposed to buy into this character losing matches? You know what I'm saying? Like, unless you're setting up something for me to make me understand that maybe there's a difference in how powerful he is in his own pocket dimension versus when he gets in the ring, you have a hard time selling me a loss to that character.
Yeah, that was always tough, especially when it came to the Fiend. You're right. I think it all fell apart when that character had to wrestle. And again, I don't want to beat the dead horse with the Wyatt Six. I will continue to be open-minded and hope it gets there. But for me, the last time I cared, and I hate to say that, but it's true, the last time I cared and thought they were onto something was, I forget however long ago it was, but they spent a couple weeks and they did these vignettes that were like styled as like sit down interviews with each of the members of the group that were like pseudo semi out of character. When that was happening, I was like, okay, we can do something with this, where they kind of, go ahead and admit the fact that, hey, they are doing this as a tribute act, but here's why, and we're going to tell you why. Have you care about each of these people behind these spooky characters and kind of let them build from there. And for whatever reason, I think maybe injuries and stuff, that stopped. And I mean, at this point, like, my thing would be like, let's just go back to that. I don't care if you have to show them again or film them again, but like, that was the last thing that hooked me. And this stuff just hasn't. For everything I've said over the past few weeks, we're just mashing the flaws of the Wyatt Six and the Smackdown tag division together, and it's not making it any better.
I don't disagree. And I think that's where my initial point came from, right? Is where do you go with this? Because you roped the entire tag team division in. And like I said, this is what you would do to make for a decent blow off for the threat that is the Wyatt Six. That all of the teams need to put their differences aside and come together for the greater good of defeating the Wyatts. But you haven't put the Wyatt Six on screen to make them any type of threat that needs to be collectively overcome, right? And so what are we doing here if you're not serving up the entire tag team division to the Wyatt Six? Because they haven't had that moment of really devastating the division, Like, if they followed up in a perfect world scenario, their awesome entry into the main roster, and then you followed that up with those vignettes, then you followed that up with different pairings of the members of the Wyatt Six, totally destroying the tag team division. You know what I'm saying? Like, they could use the Freebird rule and switch up the tag teams for different matches that they're doing, and then pull a Rollins faction, which they still don't have a name, but pull a Rollins faction deal, right? And have them run in on every single match that they're in and just totally decimate the competition, right? That gives stakes to each tag team to be like, you know what? We need to put aside our differences and form a coalition to stop the Wyatt Six, because none of us are going to be able to survive and do what it is that we're trying to do as long as they are a looming presence. That's how it would work in a perfect world. And I feel like that's what WWE is trying to do, but they've skipped all the steps in between for one reason or another. And now we're at this point where, dude, either you are going to serve your entire tag team division up to the Wyatts to make them seem credible, or they're going to lose, and the Wyatt Six are going to lose all the credibility that they may even possibly have, right?
Yeah,
Go into obscurity.
I'm not with you. You can't even sell me on the fact that they have much credibility.
Agreed.
Like you said, people are going to cheer because there's aspects of it that's cool. But I mean, if we're going to be honest about it, they're going to cheer because it is a Bray Wyatt tribute act.
Yep.
And people loved that performer and that character. So cheering for this it's almost like, cheering for him. And it's really close to being too far gone for me. So I hope they can save it, because I think there is something of an idea here. There are capable performers here, but man, it's getting close. Like, I said a few weeks ago, it's put up or shut up time. Like, make this work and make me care about it, or maybe it's time to just let it go.
Agreed. Agreed. And the last thing I'll say about that is it's almost a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Because even if you decide to let it go, right? Where do you go with any of those members?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like where do you go with any of them? Like none of them have stables to go to that are outside of this. Where do you incorporate them into any picture outside of the Wyatt Six? Now, there's some ideas, right? You could go in a completely different direction with them. Like maybe an interesting idea, and I'll touch on it really quickly, and then we'll move off of this because there's something else I want to talk about regarding SmackDown. But maybe you could go a route where, let's say, you take Bo Dallas down a version of a delusional heel, right? Where let's say the Wyatt Six, they're all on board, they're all, like they are, and they continue to lose, right? And they start to become disillusioned with what this is supposed to be. You know what I mean? And Bo, who is Uncle Howdy, right, is still delusionally wrapped into this idea that this is exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And maybe he takes this into a very domineering, aggressive stance with the members of the group. Maybe you could play into some psychological aspects of abusive relationships, right? Where he's much more of a cult leader than you think, and not in the ways that they portrayed Bray, right? Where he's like the leader of the family and they all respect him and follow him, right? But maybe you lean into this aspect of Uncle Howdy as being a cult leader, but in the sense that like people stick around because of aspects of maybe an abusive relationship or an imbalance in a power dynamic or perceived power dynamic, right? Like you want to get away, but you stay. The same questions that we ask to like people who are in abusive relationships. Like, why do you stay? You're not getting anything from this. And they're like, but I love them. And it's like, they don't love you for real. There are some ideas you could play around with that could take this in some very interesting ways. And I think the only way that you save that group is make for the story to be self-contained within the Wyatt Six.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, and that's why I brought up those few like sit down interviews they did, because it didn't have to deal with them interacting with anyone else, which again, because this is professional wrestling and we talked about it with the Fiend, if you contain the story within them, then it's not as important that they go wrestle anyone else, where sometimes the spooky gimmicks can fall apart. So yeah. I'm with you. There's definitely ways to save it. I'm just so jaded at this point that I don't know if they can or for whatever reason.
No, I hear you. I think the best thing for them to do is to make some sort of self-contained story within the Wyatt Six. Make Bo Dallas the leader of the group, but he ends up becoming the big bad of their overall story, right? And then have characters that can pull away from, the Wyatt Six in a similar way that and obviously this is not apples to apples, but in a similar way that Jey Uso became main event Jey Uso from pulling away from the bloodline. Maybe you get a star, to be made from the Wyatt Six by making a story that's way more self-contained, way more conflict laden within the group, right? And in that way, you don't have to worry about trying to figure out power balances when you put these people in matches with quote unquote regular wrestlers, right? And then the breaking away from the Wyatt Six, you don't have to allude to it directly, but indirectly, you allude to the idea that breaking away from the Wyatt Six is breaking away from this wellspring of spooky power, right? So that when you leave the Wyatt Six, you can have regular matches with people, and we can at least make some sort of mental inference that, oh, well, it makes sense that Nikki Cross is now wrestling normally in the women's division because she's not with the Wyatt Six anymore, et cetera, et cetera. But
I mean, I just think it says it all that the way to save this is to just slowly blow it and get everyone away from it. So that's the point where I think we're at. But again, I'll keep watching with an open mind and a hope that it will survive and save itself somehow. Because
I
again,
agree.
there's people smarter than me when it comes to wrestling doing this. So hopefully they can figure something out and it'll work.
Well, you know what didn't need figuring out on SmackDown though, bro? So that women's 6-person tag match was a perfect precursor for Money in the Bank, because
Agreed.
all of the women involved in that match, I knew they were all great. I knew they were all great. The chemistry that they all have in the ring with each other is phenomenal. I thought that match was really good. And boy, if you were on the fence, and listen, I'm going to go ahead and make a hot take now about the weekend, about Money in the Bank. For me, if I was on the fence at all about what was going to be my match of the night for Money in the Bank, that any doubt was gone after that 6-person tag match, because that match to me was phenomenal.
Very, very good. I mean, yeah, I can't add anything to that. It was awesome. It was a great time. It was definitely probably the high point of SmackDown for me. But yeah, just you get a bunch of great performers and characters that people care about, and you get them together with stakes, as you like to bring up and I like to bring up. And that's kind of what happened. You know, you can make magic from it. But the investments made in these characters and their story, it pays off when things like that can happen.
Agreed. And it's such a interesting juxtaposition from what we were just talking about, because this 6-person tag match is so cookie cut for WWE, right? Right before the PLE, let's put all the women in a tag match. All the people we're about to see in this match, let's give it to you a night early, just without the ladders. It's routine for WWE, but it works so well because there's an investment made in each one of these women in ways that are substantial, that make us care about the subtle storytelling beats that are in there, even ones that don't really matter all that much. You know, I didn't necessarily think that I needed a Devil's Kiss battle between Naomi and Stephanie Vaquer until I saw it, and I was like, I didn't know I needed this, but I needed this.
I mean, how much of a superstar does the company have on their hands with Stephanie Vaquer, or what, Vaque, as some would say? But yeah, I mean, just everything about her screams superstar in the way that the audience already react. And we've seen time and time again, I don't think it's controversial to say that just because you're a success and known in NXT doesn't mean you're going to be known to the weekly audience on Raw and SmackDown immediately. But she has already connected and is vastly, vastly over with everyone. And I just think it's almost like, you know, they're completely different, and I'm not comparing them in any way other than what I'm about to say, but the way the audience kind of would immediately connect with Rhea Ripley, and you could see, like, okay, they've got a superstar here. It's kind of the same vibes I get from Stephanie Vaquer already. At least for me, that's how
I don't disagree. It's, you know, okay, so I don't think this is controversial to state either, but when it comes to professional wrestling, not just for women, but for men too, you got to have almost a perfect combination of attributes in order to hit this hard, this quickly. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to go in the ring. You've got to look the part. Your presentation has to be on point, and having pedigree never hurts. And Stephanie Vaquer has all of these things. She has all of these things. She has pedigree. She's been wrestling for a while, all over the world. So she's got the pedigree. The presentation, listen, I'm a wrestling fan, but as we so eloquently elaborated on in our bonus episode this weekend, I'm also a big comic book fan. For me, the second I saw Stephanie Vaquer and her presentation, I thought Psylocke from the X-Men. I don't know if that's intentional, but a lot of it is there. And so for me, I thought the costume design was excellent. You know, I thought it was spot on. I liked it. I liked the styling, right? She's also a looker. She looks the part. Like let's not gloss over the obvious right now. Her Instagram is popping. Like she looks the part. And all of these things, Skeener, don't undercut the fact that the woman can wrestle. You know what I mean? She can wrestle. And mind you, she wrestled 3 times over the weekend.
Yep. 3 times in 24 hours, right?
Yeah. Like it was Smackdown. Then she wrestled at Worlds Collide. And then she wrestled at Money in the Bank. And it's like, that is hella impressive. I mean, that is the sign of a genuine wrestler. And I say that as no disrespect to professional wrestlers who did not come up through the indie scene. But, and I say that because you're oftentimes also not presented with scenarios like this. Like, let's be real. This is the first time that WWE has had a brand like AAA underneath their umbrella, right? And to have 3 events like that, you normally only get that between WrestleMania season for the most part, SummerSlam, when you'll get a Friday night SmackDown and you'll get an NXT event on Saturday, and then you'll get the main roster PLE later on that Saturday. So you don't get those opportunities that often. That being said, we have had those opportunities before, and I have never seen one wrestler compete on SmackDown, on NXT's program, and on a main event PLE within 24 hours. I think that speaks to someone's desire to wrestle. You know what I'm saying? And all of those things we talked about that make her a star, there's a desire to put her on every one of those programs if she's willing to do it. And
yeah, for the company to trust and want her to be, that much at the forefront of, 3 shows like that shows how highly she's already thought of within. And like you said, her own desire and her own aptitude to do it. And that's why I said that, maybe it's cliche when we're talking about WWE, but it's just, she's a superstar. And I don't see any way she's not, hugely successful in this business for years to come.
Agreed. And I'm going to say this, right? As a testament to all of the qualities that we spoke of with Stephanie Vaquer, right? And I don't mean this in the way that some people mean this when I say tons of respect, but there's a respect for what she is presenting and is able to accomplish right now, because the demeanor of this character of Stephanie Vaquer on screen is so Wednesday Addams. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so very little expression, very little emotion that's shown. And I'm not even lying, brother. 1000%. I know this to be a fact. Her entrance music is standard default music from WWE 2K games.
Is it?
I'm not even lying. I have heard that music on at least 2 or 3 different 2K titles. It's default music that you can pick for one of your creator wrestlers. The first time I heard it, I thought to myself, did they really give her default wrestling music? And then I went and I checked, and they did. I feel like it was on 2K24.
I haven't played as much of the last 2 games, so
well, me either. Me either. I haven't played 25. I bought 24, and before 24, I hadn't played a WWE game for a number of years. But that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. That's not new default music. I think it's just one of those defaults that just be in the roster of music selections that you can pick. They you know what I'm saying, that they just own, they just put in there. It's just default music. Like there's always some sort of like country sounding music theme, and there's always one like America sounding, that they have under there for generic characters. It's just a generic song. When I heard it, I said, did they really give her generic music? And I'll be honest, before she debuted in NXT, I did a little research on her, but I didn't watch her, you know what I'm saying, in the promotion she was in before. So when I saw the presentation for her on NXT, that was the first time I was exposed to Stephanie Vaquer. That was the first time I heard that entrance. And I said to myself, I didn't catch the mystique of her at the time, right? And I just thought they gave this new wrestler who's coming in highly touted with Julia, this generic wrestling music. And I was like, wow, WWE seems to really be cutting corners right now with like what they're willing to put into. But I always say that though, because None of that is holding her back. None of it. Sometimes you have situations where people are like, oh, this wrestler is only their entrance music. They're only their entrance. A lot of criticism around Jay, I didn't agree with any of it, but there were a lot of people out there who felt that way, right? You can't say that about Stephanie because that generic music is on the 2K games and she is Wednesday Addams in flesh. But boy, does she stand out in everything else.
Yeah, I mean, again, she just, when she's on the screen, when she comes out, and music aside, when she does an entrance, you see that character and that performer on the screen, you're going to watch. And, that's, in a nutshell, that's professional wrestling to me. Is this a character and a performer you want to watch do something?
Agreed.
And she definitely is that. To me, and seemingly most of the audiences I've seen her put in front of recently.
I don't disagree. So look, let's segue that actually, unless there's something else you want to touch on SmackDown, let's segue that into Money in the Bank.
Let me rack my brain real quick. No. And we can talk about it at Money in the Bank. The only thing, just kind of the way things developed on SmackDown, but it's more of a thing leading into Money in the Bank and what happened there.
Okay. So let's segue into Money in the Bank because I'm sure there were plenty of people out there who may have thought that Stephanie Vaquer was a shoo-in for women's Money in the Bank winner. And I would not have faulted you there. But we had this match, Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, Roxanne Perez, Rhea Ripley, Naomi, and who am I forgetting?
I thought you were going to do Alexa Bliss.
Alexa Bliss. So this match for me was my highlight of the night. I just thought that this match from top to bottom was spotless. I think that all of the women did an incredible job. I thought that there were some very high risk spots. They didn't necessarily need to be the craziest bumps that needed to be taken. One, because we want to preserve our athletes. And two, because when you invest time into building out stories for these people, all the interactions that happen in these matches don't have to be spots that shave months off of your career. But I thought they had plenty of those. And the fact that our girl, Naomi, got that briefcase, I could not have been more happy for one person to win that briefcase. Because like we said in previous episodes, she has literally, in my opinion, the most to do with that briefcase. The most avenues that you can branch off. And so many people in that match currently have storylines that they are wrapped up in that do not require the briefcase. And with King and Queen of the Ring now having different stakes at the end, this was not your only way outside of the Royal Rumble to get hot shot into the title scene. So giving this briefcase to Naomi, I think is just going to add for the best dynamic in the women's division because Naomi's character work she's been doing is flawless. And if you watch the post show where Big E was talking to Naomi, you can just really get this sense of how long she has worked to get to the spot that she is in and how much people like you and myself and Big E and others recognize the fact that you should put some more respect on Naomi's name. And, she's grinded a lot to get here. And I couldn't think of anyone more deserving to get that briefcase and get that guaranteed opportunity at the championship. Because like Mike said on last week's episode, the women's cash-in is 100%, so you got that briefcase, you're going to the top. And her character work right now is better than it's ever been. So the sky is literally the limit for her. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. And aside from, it's, being before SmackDown, at least this week, talking post Money in the Bank, SmackDown, character-wise and everything, can't really add much that we didn't go over last week. But again, I think this was the right choice, not only because, as you said, this is a performer that has worked long and hard and deserves this shot, but it makes the the Naomi character with this fresh heel turn, and at least, somewhat fresh in the grand scheme of things, and justifying that quote unquote turn to the dark side. This is the result that made the most sense. And like you said, with Queen of the Ring and all that stuff, there's other avenues that, just because a Stephanie Becker, a Julia, or someone else didn't win this doesn't mean they can't be elevated to the title scene. Any other of a myriad of ways. But I think Naomi with this briefcase and with her character now, that kind of unhinged, I've had enough, you're all going to pay heel, is going to be fun with this briefcase and to see what she does. And I think, we've kind of gotten things opened up now that, she can pop up on Raw and win the Raw Women's title too. Or not Raw Women's title, what we're talking about. Which one is on Raw? The WWE Women's
No, I think it's the World. I think it's the World,
okay.
the Women's World Championship.
Oh, that shows how much I hate that I didn't know that. But yeah, it's going to be fun to see what she'll do, and I'm excited to see on SmackDown how that character takes it, how she gloats about it, because like you hit on last week, we already had the little callback with the Tiffany stuff that, hey, Tiffany was in her business last year. Is she going to zero in on Tiffany? What's going to happen? I'm excited to see. I'm happy that what happened is seemingly what a lot of people wanted to have happen in her winning, and I'm just can't say anything. It was a great match, the result I wanted, the result that to me makes the most sense, and I'm excited to see where it goes and who Naomi challenges and how she carries this briefcase for however long she does.
Yeah, and hopefully the brand split is over, because it just opens up the avenue for so many storytelling.
It would help SmackDown, and we definitely saw that on the show before.
Yes, we did.
And we haven't shied away from talking about how sometimes SmackDown at 3 hours is lacking, enough star power to go around to make you want to watch that whole 3 hours. So yeah. I'd be fine with loosening it just because you've got so much TV to fill something.
Agreed. And and from what we've been seeing, like, it's nothing official, but from what we've been seeing, we've been seeing Cena on Raw and SmackDown. Seth was on SmackDown, and he's a Raw guy. We've been seeing this crossover as if the back door has just been left open, which is how it used to be in years past prior to the idea of separate brands and those brands being considered almost like different companies. And it was, in my opinion, it was always better that way. You know what I mean? It was just more opportunity to see your favorite superstars, to have them interact with a litany of different people, open up the roster for interactions. And it just leads to better storytelling beats and gives more versatility, particularly for people who may not always have a place on their particular show with certain stories that are being told. And so you open up that door for people to interact with others. And yeah, it's a better situation overall. So, hats off to Naomi for, getting that briefcase. Clearly that was the person we wanted. What was the next match on the card? Because the women went first.
It had to be Becky. And well, no, didn't we have wasn't it Dom and Octagon Jr.?
Oh, it was an impromptu match.
But but I think what we were talking about just now segues really well into the men's Money in the Bank.
Okay.
So I thought, from what we had our predictions last week before SmackDown, I thought on SmackDown it became pretty abundantly clear that Seth Rollins was going to win this Money in the Bank match.
Really?
Because just having him there and having his group, taking out these superstars and coming to the other show to do it. I know he wasn't the only one, because obviously we had the women there and we had, Jay there and all that. But I think, again, the result, at least to me, and obviously it's easy to validate in hindsight, but had Seth and his group done all that and lost without some really good reason for him to lose, and really good reason to me meant not Brock Lesnar. I don't know why. Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar, I guess, could have without that,
or Punk.
if he had lost that match, I'd have been, actually a little ticked off. But, we got Seth there. And for the future, like you're talking about, maybe we loosen this brand split. I think coming out of this, Seth's goal was to get all the power. And now he's one step closer. Why can't he, or can he be a looming threat to champions on both shows? Now, is that complicated by the fact that Cena just showed up on Raw and the SmackDown champions next opponent is a Raw superstar, whatever there. But I think for the time being, to serve the Seth story, like kind of I've always tried to talk about, for him to be believable in this role that this group is going to dominate the company, I have him on both shows going forward, just to make sure that that Seth Rollins and his briefcase that he now has, it's all going according to his and Heyman's big dastardly plan, and that he's there. You're just waiting on him to pull the trigger. Now, again, what Cena now going to the other show seemingly complicates that. We'll see how that plays. But I just thought as SmackDown continued, at least for me, it became clearer and clearer that Seth was going to win. And then obviously that transpires kind of how we talked about that Bronson and Braun get involved. And I was a little surprised that, we didn't have counter interference in a way. But I just thought that this was, for the Seth story and what they're telling with this group, this was the next beat that had to logically happen, at least for the way I see the story going now. And I'm all here for it. So I know I threw like 8 different things at you, but
it's all good.
What do you think about Seth winning, how he won, where we go from there?
So I still think so I agree, like I said before, that Seth winning Money in the Bank was the logical choice. I thought that it was the foregone conclusion. I would have liked for LA Knight to have won. That was my pick. I think that LA Knight having that briefcase would have just been incredible, particularly for what I think may be in the works here. And I'll speak on that in just a moment. But I think Seth winning does service this story. I think it services it in a way that makes the most sense. I agree that in the vein of, let me rephrase. I agree in the spirit of turning heel, you need to have that payoff. And we did it with Naomi. I just kind of thought, particularly after SmackDown, because you seem to be more reinforced in the idea that Seth was going to win after SmackDown. I thought after watching SmackDown, it was more clear that he wasn't going to win. Typically, WWE will put you in the headspace of believing that if you are the person who's getting your hand raised prior to the PLE, you're not going to win the PLE. That's typically what they do. When you have a one-on-one match, if it was me versus you, Skeener, and on Monday, you got the drop on me, right? And then on SmackDown, I get the drop on you and I'm holding the belt above your head and you're the champ. That probably means I'm losing on Saturday. But obviously, that is a trope. It's not something that WWE feels the need to speak to at all, which is fine. I don't care about that. But it's just what I thought, right? But I do think that Seth getting the briefcase does serve his story the best. I'm surprised that we did not see Punk, but in light of what we saw on Monday, I guess I get why we didn't. I just thought that it was an abrupt way to move Punk away from Rollins, even if for a little while. And I thought that it would make more sense if we did see Punk out there, because obviously Seth was going to have his goons interfering in his match. But it seems so integral of a part of the story that Sami Zayn was making it very clear to CM Punk that he needed Punk to win his qualifying match for Money in the Bank to keep that briefcase away from Seth, right? And then Punk doesn't qualify. It seemed like it would make the most sense that Punk would show up, right, to cost Seth the briefcase, but Punk never showed. That just made zero sense to me. For what we have left, I think, yes, having Seth with that briefcase makes the most sense. I just thought from a storytelling perspective, it would make more sense for Punk to cost him that briefcase. And then you spin off into a direct feud with Punk and Seth. But, you know, to just peek behind the Monday Night Raw curtain a little bit, did not expect Punk to be Cena's next stop on his tour. So I see where they were going with that. I just didn't think that that was the right move. But I thought the match was great. I think all the parties involved, I mean, dude, we were primed for some for some legitimate crazy spots with that ladder match. And usually, you know, they don't cease to deliver in the men's Money in the Bank match. Like I always think about last year when Kevin Owens took that power bomb through those ladders outside. Was that last year?
I mean, he took a power bomb through the ladder in February from Cody.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm thinking about.
Last year either. But yeah, he definitely took one. I mean, that's why he's hurt, right?
Yeah, I think that has something to do with it. Sure, yeah. But like, yeah, that's what I keep thinking about. So, you know, maybe it wasn't an apples to apples comparison there, but the men's matches are always great and they don't fail to deliver. And I think, you know, Penta had some great spots. Andrade had some great spots. Seth had some great spots, obviously. LA Knight with that back suplex off those ladders to Penta. Mm-hmm. Boy, Penta's head came so close to that ladder that was saddled across him.
I thought the same thing when they did it. I'm like, oh, is that ladder far enough out of the way?
Yeah, but that drop, I mean, bro, like a half a foot too far back, and that would have been a nasty bump. Oh,
for sure.
And Penta would have been out for a while, and LA Knight would have never been able to live that down.
So and I agree, but while we're on this, I wanted to say, because one, I thought the same thing you did as that was happening. I was like, is that ladder far enough out of the way?
Yeah.
But sometimes, and this is just a small aside, and sometimes in these matches, you feel like, or at least I do, I feel like things get so choreographed, and I don't love using that word because obviously it is all choreographed, but it looks like too perfect and clean that all these spots get set up. And for him to just almost like, you know, back suplex, just throw the guy off the ladder, that was one of my favorite moments because it's not like, to me, that screamed like that was one of the as quote unquote real as you can make it. He wasn't setting up to do like a specific wrestling move. He was just like, this guy's climbing the ladder to win. I'm going to run up there and just chuck his ass off as quick as I can. We don't need to, you know, tie his arms up, do a dragon suplex, do any of that. And that was just a little moment for me that I was like, hey, that's a great performance there. Like, that's that character getting into it and just in one moment, like selling you, keeping you in it, not taking you out of it. That just jumped out at me. And I don't know if it did for anyone else, but I just wanted to point that out while you brought that up, and that reminded me of that.
Well, here's another thing to the whole choreographed aspect of it. I have I don't want to say love-hate relationship, but let's just say that I am a conditional supporter of critiquing the choreographed aspect of things while also appreciating the desire to ensure that the matches go off the way that they're supposed to, that the show is delivered the way it's supposed to, and that within the reasonable expectation of what you're doing in a match, that everybody goes home the same way they showed up. So in that match, there was a segment, I believe it was right before LA Knight back suplexes Penta off those ladders. There's a scene where I believe Rollins is on the mat. The ladders are set up. There's a spot where Penta comes from the top rope and rides this ladder right onto the other ladders, almost like the pendulum on a clock. Gable. Oh, it was Gable, right?
Yeah. So from the outside,
right.
I think you're going to talk about another thing I love.
Right. So Rollins is on the ground.
Yep.
And he's holding the base of the ladder, and he's making sure that that ladder does not fall, that it stays in place, and that that ladder gets from point A to point B so that Gable can get to where he's going. I know there are probably some people online who are crapping all over that will see that and think, oh my gosh, way to make it not look real. He's clearly down there guiding the ladder. Dude, these are human beings that are doing this job. Like, these are such dangerous spots, right? And people forget, but I don't forget when I see these things because I've been watching wrestling long enough, right, to remember Sid Vicious breaking his leg off the top rope. I remember Owen Hart dying in the ring. I remember Darren Drozdov getting his neck broken. These are real people putting their bodies on the line to entertain. We appreciate matches that don't end the way that Zoe Stark's qualifying match for Money in the Bank ended. Let these people ensure that the people that they work with don't get injured, that the match goes off without a hitch so that you, as an armchair theorist, can sit at home and complain about Seth Rollins guiding that ladder to its final destination without someone meeting a grisly fate in that match so that you can complain about something else. You know what I'm saying? Like, people need to fall back. And I know there are people who think that, but I appreciated it. I appreciated the fact that we got to the point where we could be talking about how crazy of a spot it was that LA Knight, back suplexes Penta off this ladder because the match wasn't stopped because the ladder slipped. Chad Gable falls. You know what I'm saying? And injures himself. You feel me?
Maybe it conflicts and what I said before came across wrong, but I remember seeing Rollins doing that and I love that too. But they had given him a reason to be there in service of he was put down in that spot by whatever move it was so that he could do that in the future. And it was great. I didn't think it probably wasn't too intrusive if you weren't looking for it. But yeah, I thought that was kind of perfect almost.
It was.
I was just going to pick your brain about one more thing while we're on the ladder match and talk about we talk a lot about characters on this show. So very rarely do we get into the wrestling moves, but we'll take a little aside. One more thing. Wondered if it bothered you the way it bothered me. And maybe bothered is too strong of a word.
Okay.
But it just kind of brought some memories back. When I didn't love it that both matches featured the same destroyer spot onto a ladder.
Okay.
Because we had we had the double in the women's match. And then it was weird to just, at least to me, to then do it again in the men's match. Because it almost I don't know. To me, I was like, I just saw it. And I get it that, just because it happened once, it's kind of like only weirdly a wrestling thing. One dunk in the first quarter of a basketball game shouldn't make a dunk in the fourth quarter less impressive. But when we can choose to do it and not do it, I don't know. The order was just weird to do the double destroyers in the women's match and then go back and just do the single one in the men's match. Also, along with that, I want to bring this point up to you that one of my buddies, James, brought up to me, and I don't know if he's going to listen or not, but I didn't come up with this. Why is the destroyer when a female does it? Why is it a code red? It's a destroyer when a male does it, unless it's a lucha, in which case it's a Mexican destroyer. We gotta, yeah.
Okay,
I just don't know why the person doing it changes the name.
Okay, so it's so funny enough. I was thinking something about this the other day. I can't remember who it is, but someone in NXT also does. Oh no, it's Roxanne Perez. So Pop Rocks is the same move as the Code Red. It's the exact same move, right?
Yeah,
it's a move with that. It's a move that allows for a smaller woman to do a sunset powerbomb, right? Now, I get it. Two different names. Listen, I have more of a critique with the same move being called two different things.
I just thought it was funny because obviously where it comes from is Zelina does it, and that's the Code Red because she's cousins with Amazing Red, and he pioneered or did it and whatever, called it the Code Red. But it was just funny to me that instead of just going with generic Destroyer when the women did it, it was both Code Reds because another woman did it. It's not that serious. I just brought it up to try
now,
to be
let me ask you something.
a little humorous. Yeah.
Are those exactly the same move? Because I don't recall. I mean, and maybe it's just something that I'm missing, but I don't recall Penta being positioned on someone's back when he does it. I think he does it as almost like a traditional sunset flip power bomb.
In the moment, I cannot remember. I'd have to go back to the tape and look.
I think the difference between those two moves, the Mexican Destroyer, right, and the Code Red, we'll call it Code Red, is the positioning of the executor of the move when they start the move. I think the finish of it, the result of it, of the starting position is the same, but the starting position is different. I don't think Penta mounts the back of his opponent in reverse and does the flip, but he might. It's very possible. It's one of them things that I just may not be seeing it either, but I don't know. Maybe he does. Either way.
See, now you're gonna think about it. Now you're gonna.
I am. It's gonna make me go look it up afterwards.
Yeah.
It's gonna make me look it up afterwards. I don't know. I think my thoughts on that as far as the spots in the matches, I did not mind it. I don't think I would have minded it. I don't think I'm saying that right. I don't think I would have minded as much.
I think minded is correct because you can't mound it.
No, you can't mound it. But I think if you say, I don't think I mind it as much. I think that works too. I don't think I minded as much if the setup was not so meticulous.
I agree. That's what, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand.
It's very clear that that's where it was going.
It's very, right. So I think for the women, I think the offense in the setup was the fact that they were trying to do it in stereo and they were trying to time it with each other. And I remember thinking to myself, this is obviously it's a spot. Let's be real.
I think it was Alexa was doing the counting, right?
Yes, and here's my thing, right?
And whoever it was it Roxanne with her kept like looking back behind her. Yeah.
And here's my thing. Obviously, nobody thinks that people are out here freelancing. So I know there's spots, and I know that this is a planned spot. My issue is the fact that there's so much coordination there, not necessarily for the sake of safety. Right? Because that's the thing that we weren't levying criticism against with Seth, right? There's coordination there for the sake of safety. This was coordination for the sake of doing it in stereo. And that to me was the offense there. I thought the spot was still cool, but some of the cool factor was taken away when I saw two people who seemingly should have no connection to one another in this moment to do this move in stereo are coordinating to do it in stereo. That kind of threw me. Now,
it's kind of the opposite of like I was talking about the LA Knight just throwing the guy off the ladder tells you that, hey, I'm a guy in this scenario just trying to win the match versus you get a spot like that where it's like two supposedly opposing competitors are just doing something to look cool. It's a fine line. And it's one of those things. Small complaint.
Well, and here's the thing. So in the men's match, the Mexican Destroyer on the ladder, my issue with that one was also in the setup. I understand, however, why it was necessary, right? You wanted to make sure that the ladder, the part of the ladder, the head of the ladder that was positioned within the rungs of the standing ladder was not going to come loose. You also wanted to make sure that the legs of the ladder were also not going to come loose from where they were positioned on the rope. I totally get that, right? I just feel like because of that, it took a little bit of the sting out of it because the setup was so meticulous while they were on the ladder by the two individuals that was Penta and Andrade, right? It was so meticulously set up that it almost took the breath out of it for the fans. Like typically the fans are like that there's a buildup, right? When the big spot's about to happen and you start to hear the crowd swell. It almost took the breath out of the crowd swell because it took maybe a half second to a second longer than it needed to because they're trying to make sure the ladders are set up good. And I get why. You don't want to land that destroyer and then either end of that ladder come loose from
right,
because then that fall after the slam is going to be awful. And so you don't want that. I get it. It did take a little bit of the sting out, but that is a minor observance. I'm not even going to say a complaint because I'm not complaining. It was just something that I observed. It was something I observed in the women's match because kudos to them for taking the bump, right? And, you know, like I said in our pre Money in the Bank episode, these matches have the opportunity to make or break people's careers. Some people can legitimately have a spot in these matches that people will remember forever. Do I
Shelton
think
Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin
agreed?
will
Agreed.
Always.
Do
As
I
many
think,
other great things as he did.
Yes.
You will, no one ever forgets that first run up the ladder.
Agreed. Do I think that either one of these Money in the Bank matches had one of those moments for anyone? If there's one, I think it would be LA Knight and Penta. Just because the way that they executed that back suplex off the ladder was very fluid. And something that they probably didn't plan for was how close Penta's head came to that ladder. It just took my breath away when I watched it. And the fact that they executed that and neither one of them were hurt, hats off. That's crazy. But I'm just happy that everyone came out, you know, safe and sound. The winners of those matches, I think they will serve their stories well. We will definitely touch on Seth again because when we get to Raw, I have thoughts. And yeah. So moving along from Money in the Bank men's matches, not getting to the tag match. What match was between those?
Becky and Lyra. Which
Becky
for
and Lyra.
me was, aside from the moment that closed the show, was what I was kind of most excited for and what I enjoyed the most watching it.
Okay.
Was Becky and Lyra. And again, this is their third one-on-one in this little series.
Yeah.
And again they've all been awesome. I mean, bell to bell. There's not much that can be said or critiqued. They're two of the greatest, but kind of how it played out in the story and what we got at the end and the way Lyra did have to raise her hand and then she got fed up about it. I think that's exactly what I've been hoping would happen with this story, is that, again, and I've said it, and I'll repeat myself briefly here, that this Lyra Valkyria character has not yet had the adversity of this level. When she's up against someone that's, you know, in story and in reality, really freaking good, and is just going to needle her and get the better of her on this occasion, take her title. She has to sit there and raise her hand, and how's that character going to respond? And we saw how she's going to respond, and that's to kind of gain an edge and to finally be fed up with it, not just come back at Becky verbally, but physically. And sure. I think, like we've said, I think that character really needed that. I'm glad that's where we're going. I'll let you, if you want to do it now or later, touch on how this developed on Raw. That adds a wrinkle to this, but I think it went off exactly how I maybe envisioned it happening, and I thought both of these women just performed it to a T. And it was my favorite segment of the night, excluding, again, what I would call moment towards the end of the show.
Okay. So we can go ahead and jump to Raw for this match, for this angle in particular, this story, because I thought that the major story beats here for this overall story between Lyra and Becky took its next big leap on Raw, which I was hoping that we would get at the PLE. I thought that Lyra keeping the belt may have been the better move, but I see what WWE is doing, that Becky and Lyra are not done with one another. And they're going to introduce the returning Bayley into this story because Bayley showed up on Raw. Listen, first of all, let me just say this. Becky Lynch is incredible on the mic. I think she's better on the microphone than she is in the ring. And that's not taking away her wrestling ability. At just speaking very loudly and proudly to how great she is on the microphone. I think just this whole, when she said that she thinks that Lyra was trying to kill her and,
I know.
and that she thinks that her shoulder's out of socket because Lyra raised her arm wrong. I was
laughing so hard.
I was like, you know what, Becky, maybe she was trying to kill you. You know what? You know how you say to little kids, when they tell you some outlandish story, you're like, oh yeah, bud. I'm sure that is what happened, bud. Yeah. I had to resign myself to, you know what, Becky? Maybe she was trying to off you. Maybe she was, bud. Because you believe it. And and I'm gonna roll with it because you're landing on everything right now. And I appreciate it. But so let's just take a step back real quick, and then we're gonna step right back into Raw. I wished that Lyra's beatdown of Becky was a little bit more than what she gave her at the end of that match, particularly because Becky kind of cheated the win. But Becky got comeuppance from Bayley. Bayley's beatdown was absolutely warranted based on the story. I think I've appreciated what this feud has done for Lyra and giving her an edge. Lyra, and I mean this with all the respect in the world, Lyra needs to really watch the tape back. Like when she does stuff, when she performs, she should really get them to like burn her a DVD and take it back to her hotel room and watch it. And just watch it and tell me if you think that the way that you look when you do certain things is accurately portraying what you're trying to convey. Because sometimes she does things and I'm just like, these actions are so stilted. Like the way she stormed out there to Becky, when Becky was calling her out so that she could, raise her arm again the correct way. She comes out there with these stiff arms and it's this look on her face like, ooh, I'm mad. And I'm looking at it like, you don't look mad. You look like you're pretending to be mad.
Right. Yeah. I'm with.
And then when Bayley started whooping that ass, right? Lyra had this look on her face like, why is this happening? You should know why this is happening. Like this is very clearly retribution for beating her up and taking her out of WrestleMania, putting her on the shelf. You knew this. You alluded to this. And Becky made very clear that she did it. So unless you were in like a soundproof room or were not in the building when Becky said this, you should very well understand why Bayley is whooping up on that ass, right? But you look so confused. And then even when Becky jumped out the ring, you throw her back in the ring to continue the ass whooping and still look confused. I'm flabbergasted at the emoting of this character. And I wonder if like when she goes back through the curtains into Gorilla, if anybody says anything to her other than good job. Because somebody, if I was back there, if I was Lyra's friend, or if I was Lyra's husband, or if I was Lyra's coach, or whatever, I'd be like, hey, champ, you did great out there. That segment was good. Listen, let's get them to burn us a DVD, and let's go watch the tape back. Or, hey, you got Netflix? Cool. Let's go watch it back. Because there are certain things I just want to point out, X and O's wise, just how we game plan this thing. Because you're looking a little stilted and you seem to be telegraphing emotions that you don't really have. And if you have a hard time emoting in that way, cool. We can devise something else for you to do, some other way, you know what I'm saying, to get across the point you're trying to get across. Because when you come out there with that, I'm mad look, it just does not land. It really doesn't. And you show these glaring deficiencies that you should not be showing at this point in the feud. And it also speaks to this idea, and I don't believe it, because I think Lyra has done some good work in this feud. Some of the best work I've seen her do on any roster with regard to character work. But it shows you just how far of a gap there is between where she is and where Becky is, where she is and where Bayley is, and how they just come across and emote on the screen. And even between Becky and Bayley, right? I mean, good Lord, dude. Becky is just so far and away incredible at emoting and conveying emotion in a way that is believable and also translates well onto camera for professional wrestling, right? You can't just do your emotions and expect them to translate well on television for an audience, for everyone to perceive the correct ways you're trying to, emote. I think that Lyra has taken a very PC, and I don't mean politically correct, I mean the Performance Center, a very PC approach to emoting without being able to put any type of human aspect behind those actions. And so they come across seeming very much, okay, so on paper, you come out here, Lyra, and you're mad, okay? And Becky's going to be in the ring talking a bunch of trash, and you need to come out there with like a, ooh, I'm mad sentiment, okay? And she's like, right, got it. Ooh, I'm mad. And then she comes out there and is, ooh, I'm mad. I mean, am I on an island by myself here, or do you feel the same way?
So it didn't strike me. I know what you're talking about. It didn't strike me as heavily as it seemed to strike you. But I think all this underscores like kind of what we've been saying, in that this character needs this, yes, but there's a performer behind this character that, because her character has never been in a situation with this adversity, maybe she hasn't had the reps, the time, the ability to have to show this, like when it's game time in front of a crowd, when the lights are on. I think she'll get there, but yeah, when you put her on screen, and I alluded to this a couple weeks ago, and you did in this and in other feuds, like when you're on screen with, maybe the best to do it in Becky Lynch in terms of character work and stuff like this, you're going to not look as good in comparison. But that's why you put performers and characters in these spots, so that hopefully they can develop and learn up to them. But yeah, I'm with you. I see where you're coming from. But I think it's exacerbated because, one, it's a new situation for this performer and character. And two, your points of comparison are Becky Lynch and Bayley.
True.
In this aspect. And while I've got the floor, I'll go ahead and talk about, Bayley's insertion into this at this point.
Please. That's
what was surprising for me, because I spoke last week on our prediction episode, and I was pretty certain that, the development we were going to get in the story was Becky's going to win, Lyra's going to have to raise her hand. And I spoke about how I had lost kind of my finger on the pulse for when Bayley's going to come back, because sure. I think, like you alluded to, and we all expected that, hey, when Bayley comes back, it's going to be because Becky and Lyra are done for the meantime, and that we're going to move on to Lyra and someone else and Becky and Bayley. So sure. It seems like these three are going to have a role to play together. So I was pretty surprised when this is the time Bayley came back, because I thought, like I just said, that when Bayley came back, Becky and Lyra were done. But I actually like this because, again, I like to be surprised. I like to not know what's going to happen, not be able to predict it. So I think this is good. And throw Bayley and Lyra in some situations where, like, yeah, they're quote unquote aligned because they both hate Becky, but Bayley's out for herself too. So hopefully, not only now does this Lyra character have this conflict with Becky, but she's got a little animosity with Bayley in the sense that, hey, I've got this issue with Bayley. Why are you butting in on my thing? So I think we've got to set up for some pretty interesting stuff that I definitely didn't see happening. And again, I think in the long run, this is all good for Lyra as a character and the performer behind it. I'm excited to see where this goes. Again, This has been probably week to week the thing I can rely on as an ongoing story to be the best. And a large part of that is because as you said, Becky Lynch is just so damn good. But I'm intrigued in a way I didn't think I would be immediately when Bayley came back. But because of the way they did it and how they did it, I am.
Well, it's good for the Intercontinental title too, right? This is not a bad way to put some respect on that title's name by keeping the rotation littered with stars. You know what I mean? It's one of the things that the women's U.S. title is sorely lacking. You know what I mean? And this is no disrespect to Zelina. I love Zelina Vega. But you don't have Rhea Ripley, you know what I'm saying, vying for the U.S. championship. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have any prominent women that are at the top of the card vying for the U.S. championship. And part of me really feels like you have got to figure out how to get the U.S. title's name out of the 4th place spot. Because as long as it's there subconsciously, I think that subconsciously writers write around the U.S. title just as a namesake. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to get around it. And I was hoping that in the women's division, because of the fact that you have fewer women on the roster and less spots at the top, that you'd have more room to open up the doors for people to move in and out of the secondary title picture. And listen, for what it's worth right now, the women's IC title has kind of been tied up by Lyra Valkyria. She's had a few different title defenses. Most of them have been against Becky Lynch, but she's had a few different title defenses. But the people who have been orbiting around that title are bona fide stars. Whereas the U.S. title picture for the women has been from Chelsea Green, which I love Chelsea Green, to Zelina Vega, which I love Zelina Vega. But that's it. And now you've got Julia in the picture. And maybe, I definitely think that Julia should probably take that belt off of Zelina. But you're going to have to build some real stories around that. And listen, maybe you don't put Stephanie Vaquer in the world title scene right now. I mean, honestly, from my perspective, it wouldn't be a bad idea if you did, because she's red hot right now. WWE has a tendency to kind of let you slow cook before they skyrocket you to the top. Despite how history tends to portray itself when we look back at things, Rhea Ripley did not become champion as soon as she got on the roster. Now it's hard to imagine Rhea Ripley without a belt, but she didn't dethrone Charlotte right away. And so I could see a world where Stephanie Vaquer does not win Queen of the Ring and does not get the title match that she then wins. But Stephanie Vaquer is also someone who is so red hot that if you were to drop the U.S. title from Zelina to Julia and then go into a program between Julia and Stephanie Vaquer for the U.S. championship, you put that title around Stephanie Vaquer's waist, that title instantly becomes relevant. The same way it doesn't matter what her entrance music is, right? It doesn't matter that is a U.S. title. It's on Stephanie Vaquer, and everybody thinks she's red hot. You know what I'm saying? And that title instantly means something. And if WWE was smart, which they're not going to do because they literally just introduced that belt last year, if they're smart, they change up the design for the U.S. title. You put it on Stephanie, right? And then you coronate her the way you coronate every other person that you think is going to be a significant title holder, right? And you give them a new version of a belt and let them retire the design for that U.S. title and introduce a new one. And I think you instantly change the status of that belt. But back to, Becky and Lyra and Bayley, I think that trio is going to carry this story forward in a way that's going to benefit Lyra. I think Bayley is excellent and Becky's excellent. So that should carry us, well past King of the Ring. I believe that's next, right? Or Night of Champions.
Night of Champions, yes.
So that should carry us through Night of Champions. Because, unless they, decide to put all the women in long sleeves like they do, we're probably not going to get
haven't we gotten past the long sleeves?
No.
They've wrestled in normal.
When?
Well, not quite normal, but I'm pretty sure the last few Saudi events they've been in more normal gear.
I think the last Saudi event I remember seeing where the women wrestled, and I could be wrong, I feel like Lash Legend and old girl, who was her partner? Do you remember? There was some multi-women tag match, and Lash Legend was up there with her tag team partner. They were all wearing cat suits.
I guess. So last thing was Liv Morgan and Nia Jax.
Yes,
was last year,
and Liv Morgan had on.
See them with everything but their hands covered. So
yeah, it's like they've graduated to cat suits without having to wear like baggy t-shirts.
Correct. So that's kind of what I was at.
Yeah,
we're not there, but I think we're improving.
Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Look, I've got thoughts on this, and I don't want to get sidetracked into it.
Listen, we're not gonna get sidetracked. I just want to say this real quick. I personally think that some of those cat suits are way more suggestive than the outfits that these women wear. And I know that it's a Saudi thing, and their sentiments towards women in their culture. But let me tell you something. If the sentiment is modesty, sir, some of these cat suits, I'm like, you should continue to wear that when you get back to the States, because that would change your career. But
I think Nia's was much more like skin tight than her normal stuff is last year.
Oh, listen, I thought that Nia's was. I thought that Liv's was. I thought that Lash Legend, Rhea Ripley. Listen, Rhea can keep her stuff. Her ring gear is solid. But Liv, I believe it was red. I believe what she was wearing was red last year.
It was. So that wasn't last year. Last year she was in, it was like black and purple.
Okay.
And I know that because I just looked it up, obviously.
Has Becky Lynch performed over there?
Has to have. I mean, I can't imagine they've been going.
Can you look that up and see if Becky has performed over there?
Yeah, I'm on it.
Because somebody wore all red.
It was the yellow Kill Bill thing.
Okay. I mean, that's dope. Yeah. That Kill Bill theme is dope. It always is. Somebody wore red one year.
Yeah, I think Liv was in the all red one the year before, because she wasn't yet. That was before she was in Judgment.
Yeah. Okay. That
she
makes
was being
sense.
Like inadvertently helped by Dom. But yeah, we've gone from the t-shirts over the cat suits to just the cat suits.
Yes. Look, some of these cat suits are. Listen, I'm just gonna say, to keep it tasteful, because we run a tasteful lounge here, some of those cat suits get 2 thumbs up by your boy. So I think some people should keep them. It's better than what you wear. And just so we don't get sidetracked, I do want to say this though. I want your opinion on something, Skeens. Is it just me, or does it seem like in current WWE, for some reason, when we get our female Asian superstars, particularly our Japanese superstars, do they not all come over with what seems to be like similar looking, styled ring attire when they hit the main roster?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, they do. And maybe it's just like, look, I don't profess that I watch a ton or any like Japanese women's promotions.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm with you a little bit. A lot of like multicolor stuff like that.
With frilly things. And
I get what you're coming with.
And I don't understand it, because when Io was Io Shirai and she was in NXT, she wore this like black catsuit thing for the longest time, right? Mm-hmm. And it looked dope, right? Asuka has always had the same general look, right? But what is her name? Kairi Sane. So she had the white sailor look. Then she went away. When she came back, she was wearing a lot of almost like biker leatherish type stuff. And I was like, oh, great, something different. And then she goes away again and she comes back and she looks so similar to everyone else. And then when Julia showed up, right? I remember seeing pictures of Julia before she got into WWE, right? And then she shows up in the WWE and her outfit looks very similar to the others. And I wish I understood why. I wish I understood why.
Maybe it's all made by the same person. Maybe we've gotten a shortage of gear makers for the women.
I was about to say that person must literally have like a cookie cut that they're like, you're from where? Okay, so we have these palettes, these styles. There's only 3 choices. Pick. And it blows my mind because it just seems to take a little bit of the character away from what you can do with their ring gear. You know what I mean? I think that's integral to a wrestler's character. And I think when you all look the same, it almost runs this lane of what WWE used to do with talent. You know what I mean? Where it's like you get pigeonholed based on who you are, where you're from. And I wish they could break free from that mold, but regardless, we got a freaking... Okay, so first of all, let's just walk through the story with all of our listeners here at the Lariat Lounge, okay? So last week, we find out very abruptly. Was it last week or the week before? Might have been the week before. I'm not sure. Time runs together. But we find out that our beloved R-Truth just gets released out of nowhere. A lot of people were wondering if this was a work or a shoot for the wrestling people out there, for the people who are not wrestling insiders, whether it was real or it was fake. Well, according to Ron Killings and his family, his son who was online, apparently, this was very real, very real. The story I heard, Skeen, was they could not come to contract negotiations for a new contract. And so WWE made the decision to opt to not renegotiate. From what I was told, what I was told, I'm not an insider. What I heard was that the outcry for We Want Truth was very real, and it was heard everywhere. You can always tell the difference. I think we talked about this last week, right? You can tell the difference between when it's real and when it's fake because the announcers ignored all of it. If it was part of the story, you would have heard Michael Cole or Joe Tessitore or someone speaking to the chants, but they glided over these chants without even mentioning them because he got released. He's no longer with the company. We need to move past this. We don't need to feed it. From what I heard, the outcry was real. They reached out to Truth. He ignored the phone calls. From what I heard, Nick Khan reached out to him directly and he answered the phone. So fast forward to Saturday, the main event, which I was wondering at first why this was going on last. You would have thought that with Seth getting Money in the Bank, that would have been the main event. But okay, this goes on last. And because the WWE Championship was not on the line. Okay, so this goes on last. Logan Paul, John Cena versus World Heavyweight Champion Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. Let me first say, before we get to the best part, Logan Paul and this daggone drone.
Yes.
Listen, first of all, it's super cool, admitted, that you've got this drone that lands in your hand like a trained falcon. That it flies around and records everything and then just lands back in your hand. Logan is on the top rope. He's about to do some crazy move and he looks over to the prime bottle where I'm going to call Falcony is perched. He looks over at Falcony. He beckons Falcony. Falcony lifts up off the ground, flies to Logan's hand. I want a drone just to do that. Okay. The drone flies in his hand. In first person view from the drone, you see Cody Rhodes run up the ropes. And what did he do? I can't even tell what move he did, but he did something. It looked crazy cool from that angle. But what popped me, Skeener, was this dude hits the mat. The drone doesn't drop. He's like a woman in the club with a drink who slips. Does a little flap with the heel. The heel kind of wavers and she doesn't spill her drink, right? Does not drop this drone. Out of nowhere comes a crashing 747 Jey Uso onto Logan. And then the camera is like, I'm done. And it just flops all over the place in this like Family Guy looking scene. It was incredible. It was such an incredible shot. I guarantee you, the YouTube video that Logan uploaded from that drone is gotten more views than any clip WWE posted from that entire PLE.
Yeah, I mean, it was really freaking cool. And I don't think we need to go much beyond that. Like, that was awesome. And I remember as it was happening, texting one of my buddies that we were watching the show together. And yeah, just cool. And, you know, beyond, like, Logan, love him or hate him, Obviously, a lot of people hate him, as we've talked about. Does some pretty cool stuff in the ring. And that's why they're going to keep putting him in these big spots and big matches, because he makes these moments and he draws reactions. And this was just another in a long line. And I'm sure the next time he steps in the ring, we're going to get another one just like it.
This is true. And listen, despite what you think about Logan, if you really want an idea of what WWE sees in Logan, besides the fact that the things that we can't ignore, the guy can go in the ring. If you ever watch his entrance, pay attention to the crowd, not the crowd that hates Logan, but look at little boys under the age of 15. Watch how they respond to Logan, to his music, to wanting to shake his hand. I literally saw a kid reach out to Logan and not get to touch him when he went by, and literally melted. Like, he put his hands on his head went back, and he had a look on his face like, oh my God, I missed it. I'm so serious. And these are the people who WWE are trying to lock in for the next 10 years of programming. They're trying to get the young versions of us. And so for the people out there who don't get it, who don't like Logan, who his outside life has impacted how you view him in the ring, I totally get it. He's not for you. He's for the next generation of you, because we are not the people who are going to continue to be here 10, 15 years from now. I mean, we might, because we're real wrestling fans.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You know, we might, because we're real wrestling fans.
I'm comfortable saying I've got another 10 in.
Maybe. But, you know what I'm saying, right? Like, we're the people who are the real wrestling fans. There are some people out there who are those fair weather people who we see in the smart comments all the time, right? Every time something will go their way, I'm canceling my Peacock subscription, right? Okay, that's fine. This may not be for you, but those kids who love a Logan Paul, those kids who melt when Jey Uso walks by, right? Those ones that get to do the yeeting with him every night, those are going to be the ones who come back 10 years from now when they're 25, right? And love the product. Those are the people who get over. For the people who think Jey Uso's just an entrance, that he can't go. Listen, there's a fan base that loves him, and I guarantee you they're younger than you. So, understand the demo and who these people are speaking to, right? But anyway, Logan does this spot. John Cena does what John Cena has been doing this entire run, cheating to win. Out of nowhere, somebody jumps the barrier. This person is dressed like a straight up comic book thug, right? Like head to toe, hoodie, all black, ski mask on, and everything. I legit, when I was watching that, Skeens, I had to question at least twice who that could be before I figured it out. At first, I was like, who is that? Wait, it's not Roman. That spear is not crisp. And then I was like, wait, who else could this be, though? Because I just don't understand. What gave it away to me was the fact that he had a bit of a plumber's butt at one point.
That's what I was going to say. Let's just shoot straight. Once we saw it was a black guy,
yes,
then everyone knew.
Yeah,
but at first, there is. I begrudge anyone to tell me with a straight face that they saw it come, because I don't think anyone. I really don't, and I definitely. I didn't know how we were going to get to a Jay and Cody win, but that wasn't anywhere on the radar. I don't think. No. Great that, no quote unquote spoilers leaked out or anything. And it was awesome. It was just a heck of a moment.
It was an incredible moment. And I agree with you. Nobody, do not tell me that you had R-Truth coming back and costing Cena and Logan the match on your bingo card, because I'm going to call you a liar. I don't believe that one bit. But what a pop that was when it was truth. I mean, listen, I do believe, just based on the things that I ingested, that his release was real, because he was released along with like Sarah Logan and Carlito, right? This was not a work. So this could not have been planned in your story prior to R-Truth being released from the company. But hats off to WWE for two main things. One, listening to their fans. I think it's difficult at this point for anybody who had criticism or did not believe Mike Chiari that WWE was listening to the fans when they pivoted back to Cody after it was announced at 40 that it was going to be The Rock versus Roman. But they listened. They listened because truth was released. They heard the outcry. They reached out to the man. They reached out a second time. Nick Khan gets involved. They bring him back in, and you have this spot that they pivot and add him into. And it could not have been a better position for this whole story, right, to be in than John Cena doing what he did to Truth, right? His biggest supporter, letting him down, cheating him in such a way and beating him. And then for Truth to be the person who cost Cena that match. Oh, it was so poetic, the justice that was there, right? It was so good. And it fit the story so well. And I can't wait to see what they do next because, first of all, tell me what you thought before we jump to Raw. Because I was so excited about what happened on Raw that I almost called you.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely an OMG moment on Raw. I mean, look, I don't have much else to really go over. And again, like I said before the match was going to be good. It was what it was.
Yeah.
What I was most concerned about, or not concerned, but most looking forward to, is where each individual piece of that match went after the match. And obviously a piece that I didn't know was going to be involved became involved. And again, I still think for everyone in there, and we may get to them today, we may not talk these people's ears off already, but where I'm interested to see, obviously, where we go, not our truth, but with Ron the Truth Killings, apparently. And new haircut. I mean, I think that was a giant, it was very symbolic in a way to shear the locks off, shear the braids off. And It was powerful in a way, as you could hear from the chants. And I'm sure we've seen that before in wrestling, maybe not, exactly that, but I think we've seen people cutting their hair, but in different ways.
Yes.
In more of a mentally unstable way than, not that, Ron the Truth Killing have some of that in the character, or at least in the past it has, but
right.
Just, I mean, what a moment. And I struggle to put my thoughts into words, and maybe it's because we don't know exactly where it's going yet, but to see now this guy that we all have known, this performer, this character, is going to go back and have this other side. And that, frankly, we didn't think we would get, I don't think, I mean, even before the release, people thought in the card was another serious Ron Killings run. I thought, we all think it's R-Truth and he pops up, which he was maybe the best ever at, just from time to time. But now to get a reinvigorated, in a sense, Ron Killing, I'm excited to see where this.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think I know where it goes.
Where are we going?
I think I know where it goes. I think that the mystery person that's going into the King of the Ring tournament is Ron Killings.
Oh, yeah. With that, I'd say almost with that.
I think he's the mystery person that goes in. And you know what? If I'm being completely real with you, I would not be mad if he went all the way. You give me one solid Ron Killings run in his career where he gets all the way to the end and he wins it, because now that King of the Ring winner gets a title shot. Let him get a title shot somewhere. Who against who? I don't know. I could shoot for the stars right now, but I'm not going to. But put him in that spot. Let him win that whole thing, right? I've been thinking about some of this stuff for a minute, right? I think, or at least by a minute, I mean the last few days. But I think Ron Killings is the mystery person in King of the Ring tournament, and I think he should go all the way. I think Seth Rollins, since we're going to speed run through Raw real quick. I think Seth Rollins cashes in his Money in the Bank at SummerSlam. I think Sami Zayn is going to win the men's. Actually, that can't happen because they're both in the same thing. So if Ron Killings does not win the King of the Ring, which maybe he won't, but if he doesn't, Sami Zayn wins it. Sami Zayn wins King of the Ring. He challenges Gunther because Gunther beat Jay. Sorry, Jay. Love you. But we knew that was happening. You spread yourself too thin. It was very apparent. That was a great match. Told an incredible story.
Yeah, and again, that's one of the things, like we were saying, you know, I'm excited to see where people go out of that match. They were telling that story pretty hard. Gunther was telling Jay,
yep,
you're going to get spread too thin. You're going to take a incredible splash through the table and get beat up and all that. And, you know, and it happens. And, you know, not to belabor that one, I'm excited to see how Jay factors into things going forward. But I'll let you get back to Truth. But yeah, the ton of exciting ways we can go now, because Truth is a new piece on the board that I don't think anyone expected to be there, at least as a major player a couple weeks ago. And if they position him as a major part of these shows, which I think they will, based on all the crowd reaction and what we're getting, it's so unexpected that it's a huge curveball, and he can go anywhere and do anything, and it's going to throw off all of what we thought may have been plans before that.
Yeah. And listen, I'm just pontificating on the idea of him getting a title run, right? But that will just be the best case scenario. But he doesn't need it. Right? You just give him a good story to sink his teeth into, where he can show what he showed on that announce table on Monday, right? That R-Truth was a little too forgiving and he joked around a little too much. But don't play with me. You know, I'm not playing. It's like, don't let people tell you that your voice doesn't matter because you brought me back. And by me, I don't mean R-Truth. I mean, you brought back Ron Killings. And then you cut those dreads off and then you say the truth has set me free. It's such a powerful line, right? For more reasons than one. But I would be remiss if I didn't think that they do something with this momentum that they've gotten out of nowhere with R-Truth, right? With Ron Killings. But I think that going, you know, away from that, right, with Gunther beating Jay, I think that from a storytelling perspective, Skeener, with Seth Rollins having that Money in the Bank, I don't think he cashes it in on whoever is the WWE champion. I think Gunther has that belt. I think you've got a built-in story with the idea of Sami Zayn winning King of the Ring. Him challenging Gunther for that world title because he wasn't able to he beat Gunther before, didn't he? For the IC title?
Yes, he is the one that ended Gunther was undefeated at that point, right?
Yeah, he was. I think he takes that.
And we saw it live and in living color.
We did. I think that Sami takes this win of King of the Ring, and I think he challenges Gunther again, Gunther Sami 2. And I think that Sami Zayn beats Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam, right? And have that be the moment that we've all been waiting for Sami Zayn to win a World Championship, right? And then Seth cashes in on him. And you bring it all the way back to when Seth wanted Sami to get in line, right? To be with him. Because if you're not, and you're in the way, he's going to ruin it for you, right? And what better way to ruin it for Sami than for Sami to finally get to the top of the mountain and lose it the same night, right? This plays into the whole thing with Killer Cross and the comments that he made to Sami after his qualifying match, right? You finally tap into that dark side. Look at you. You got to win. You accepted the interference from LA Knight. And Sami's like, I can do this by myself. I don't need that, right? So how apropos would it be for Sami to just continue to be that good guy despite Karrion saying all these things to him, right? Despite Seth saying this stuff to him, and then he gets to the top of the mountain only to get it stolen by Seth. You keep playing the good guy and you keep falling short. And then you set it up for Sami Zayn to have an epic heel turn.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I have not had almost time to even process, because again, I knew that coming out of, you know, the main event of Money in the Bank that we would know where things are headed.
Yeah.
But in my wildest, you know, my wildest dreams and anything I could conceive, they didn't involve Ron the Truth Killer. And that's thrown everything that I, thought I could predict about what's going to happen into such a mess.
Yeah.
Because it just involves so many people. And again, it's because of what we've talked about and praised about, especially the top of the card and the mains. Everything's so intertwined and interconnected.
Yeah.
And that now let's see where this new piece, because what we thought, again, we touched on it a little bit. We didn't see Punk interfere in the money and like we thought that may happen, and now we know why, because now we're going to go ahead and do Punk and John Cena. But what I was thinking is this is the first time I felt like, and you're right, maybe it is because of R-Truth, that things are moving a little faster than I wish they should.
Yes.
Only got Cena for so long. Because again, like I said, I would have liked to have seen maybe at least one more chapter be Cena and Logan. But we kind of moved that on and we moved right into the Punk thing.
Yeah.
So like,
well, that's how I felt too, right?
It seems like we're going to play all the songs we want to play, and we've only got so much time to do it.
I mean, so that counters at like 19 dates.
Yeah.
It's 19 dates.
It started hitting home for me when I saw 19. I was like, man, not a lot left.
No, not a lot left. And yeah, I felt like this was the first time that I felt like this was a bit hot-shotted. Like we got here a little quick, and certain things just did not make sense on the card that we just witnessed. I couldn't understand why Punk would not show up in that Money in the Bank match. That made zero sense. But when I saw Truth come back, it started making me think, okay, so maybe this has something to do with it. And then when he came out and challenged Cena out of nowhere, I was like, okay, this is why he didn't show up. But I'm just like, dude, why would we hotshot this without time for Punk to transition away from Rollins somehow, right, into the Cena thing? But like you said, like we were talking about, maybe with Ron coming back and this groundswell support around him, they maybe figured out a different story that they can tell with Cena, right? Because part of the thing that we were wondering was, how do you bring Cody back into this? Like, if you expect Cody to be the guy to remove the title from Cena before he goes, right, you're going to have to start building some arc somewhere where Cena turns around, right? Because we only got 19 days left.
And then Punk was talking about it. Did you catch that?
I caught a little bit of it, yeah.
He's playing into everything you've said, that Punk was talking about how John looks like he knows what he's doing is wrong.
Yeah.
And he was saying that. And that's why I was rewatching that before, in case we got to that, because I remembered that. And he said that, like, but when they were in Elimination Chamber before Cena turned, that he saw a look on John's face that he knew what he was doing was, which is kind of like everything you've been saying.
Yeah.
About Cena eventually coming back around and those little looks he gives.
He did say that. He pointed to all of those things. And I wonder how you get there through Punk, right? And I think there's still some development in the story that's going to require, and in my opinion, it needs to have some input from the final boss. Like, you have to have something here. And with 19 dates left, right? And these are including Cena appearances on Raw and SmackDown, where he's not competing, the Saudi show, SummerSlam, like, we're whittling these dates down. And like you were saying, we were alluding to this now, that he knows what he's doing is wrong. He knows what he's doing. There's got to be some reason why he's doing what he's doing at this point to make these decisions, and what is going to come into the picture is going to turn all of this around, at least in a way that's going to open the door for maybe whoever actually kicks the door open. There's got to be an opening there. And how we get there, I just don't know. But
I think we're going to get some fire between Cena and Punk. Like, and this was good on Monday, but I hope they play into, and maybe they won't, because maybe Punk, I don't want to do that. But it felt like at the end when Cena says, "You've got to follow me to Saudi Arabia for it." If they actually get into that, and Cena starts calling Punk a hypocrite and all this, we could get some legendary.
That's true. That's true, because he definitely had some things to say when he was not in the
Oh,
company.
yeah. Yeah. So when Cena said that, I was like, man, if they go down this road, this could be good.
Yeah, he did say something about taking that Saudi money. So that could be really good. I mean, yeah, we could get some fireworks from that. When is Night of Champions?
Let me look. I think end of this month.
Oh, so I mean that's gonna be a quick build. That means Cena's got to show up on
Saturday the 28th. So 3 weeks from this Saturday.
Dude, that means Cena's about to burn 3 to 4 of these dates.
Yep.
In between then and now for this. Yeah, they're gonna have to start building this turn for him soon, right?
He'll get it. I think he may only show up maybe like one more time before then.
Punk could carry the most of this, right? Punk could carry the most of this. And yeah, listen, you could do that where Cena brings out this idea of Punk being a hypocrite, right? And then Punk turn around and be like, look at you.
Yeah, he's done it so much with the audience.
Yeah.
Cena has that I think you've got to. You can't just ignore that, right?
I don't think you should. I don't think you should.
Good. And I feel like Punk knows like that's too much good business to leave on the table.
Well, Punk has already put it out there so many times that he's not here to make friends. He's here to make money, right? And he's showing up for the checks. So, of course, it will make sense that he's showing up for that big Saudi check. So that makes sense that he's already opened the door to that, right? So if we're talking about like courtroom stuff, right? You open a door for somebody to question these things. And so I think he's aware of it. I think WWE is aware of it. And it will make sense that Cena's already kind of touching on that and then lean into it further. And then have Punk turn around and point to, look at you, hypocrite. You know what it is that you're doing now, Mr. Hustle, Loyalty, Respect, Mr. All About the Business. And now you're here selling your soul to The Rock of all people, and are trying to destroy wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Like, that could be really good.
There was enough and callbacks to the first one, to that 2011 feud.
Yeah.
Because Punk came out and he echoed the thing he said when he sat down on the stage and cut the pipe bomb. He said, I got a lot of things to, and there were a couple other callbacks. You know, he called back to the Are You More Red Sox than Yankees that hit the first time. And I think they have so much history that they can play on, but so much has happened between the last time they did it and now.
Right.
It's just, I wish we had longer to build it, but we don't. So we're going to get what we get, but it could be good because these guys are good.
Yeah.
These dudes are good.
It's definitely the stop on the Cena tour that I've been looking forward to the most. And so to see what they do with it, the match that will come from that, and just the posture that Cena is taking nowadays as the heel, it's going to be such a different match than what we got years ago. And I'm just looking forward to see the story that they tell, what comes from this, because this is all in service of this greater story that is being told about John Cena on his farewell tour. And the fact that there are so many ambiguous elements of this story that we just don't know about yet is so freaking fascinating and fun as a wrestling fan to just genuinely not know. You know what I mean? Like it's so cool to be a part of a story where you literally cannot actually tell how the beats are going to play out, because for so long we were fashioned into understanding how predictable WWE storytelling was. And to be able to sit back and watch such a great story unfold and to not know what's happening on the next page, chef's kiss. I love it.
And we have to ask again, as we ask every time with the Cena match, is this where we get the final boss? Because it's almost, you couldn't script it better that this Punk Cena thing kicks off now pretty much almost exactly 14 years ago.
Yeah.
With Punk sitting on a stage doing the work shoot and calling out, talking not about The Rock, but talking about Dwayne.
Yeah.
And now we're back here 14 years later with John Cena as a heel who has quote unquote sold his soul to Dwayne.
Yeah.
To that melding of that, not The Rock, but the behind the scenes final boss that they have opened the door to, that, you know, it's not just The Rock. This is the final boss the guy on the board.
Right.
That, and man, if they, and they're beholden to whether or not The Rock wants to show up and do it. But man, if they involve that, it's almost too poetic that they could wrap it up and bring that Rock element in with Punk the way he started it by going at Cena and The Rock 14 years ago to now it's Cena and The Rock together and Punk still fighting the good fight against.
It's just, do you do it in Saudi? Like, do you bring The Rock back in Saudi Arabia and take that away from the American fans? Like, that's the thing that got me when they announced this match with Punk and Cena. The fact that the American audience is not going to get it. And you could tell the boos were audible. The boos were audible that this is happening in Saudi Arabia as opposed to here in the States.
But wouldn't it serve those characters to do that a little bit?
From a storyline perspective, yes.
And Cena already said, you've got to follow me to Saudi Arabia this match. Fine, I'll do it, but you've got to, and I think that was like, in the way he said it, you got to follow me to Saudi Arabia. Not, we're going to do it at Night of Champions. You've got to follow, in which he did say, at Night of Champions.
Right.
You've got to follow me to Saudi. And maybe, again, I'm connecting breadcrumbs that aren't there. But, like, to say that, I think that plants the seed that we know it's going to piss some of you off, that this is where we're doing. So I think it would be, at least for me, and, obviously I love chaos, and I'm here for the Logan Paul title. I would love if The Rock showed up in Saudi Arabia. And John Cena came out the next night and said, yeah, I've been trying to get the final boss to show up, but he didn't want to do it. And then when I told him to do it in Saudi, he was like, you guys.
Yeah, listen, if the check's big enough, then, then you get the final boss. I think it fits for the character.
We know those Saudi checks are big. So
yeah, they're huge. And, I think that it works for the Cena character. And I think it would work for what you were postulating with the final boss. We'll have to see. Listen, betting on Dwayne to show up right now after a no-show of WrestleMania.
Good way to go broke.
Yeah. I wouldn't put it all on The Rock if you were, in Vegas. Just, ironically, they're going back. But, I wouldn't put it all on The Rock. Not on this one.
While we're doing Punk and John Cena, we just brought Cody Rhodes. What is Cody Rhodes out of this? And, we touched on how the Jay and Gunther's warnings and predictions. Well, where does Jay go?
Yeah.
And where does Gunther go from here? And again, we're set up to, at the very core of this, they're doing a great job at what I think wrestling should do, is that I want to see these next couple shows.
Yeah.
Because I've got to know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
What I thought I knew was going to happen, some of it happened, a lot of it didn't, and some of it did in ways I could have never. So I'm at the point where I'm ready to see these next shows because I've got to see what's going to happen with all these characters that I really like and really care about.
No, I dig that.
And yeah, that's where I'm at.
No, I dig that. It threw me off when Punk didn't interfere in that ladder match, right? And it seems to make sense now with Ron Killings coming back and this zeitgeist around him just swelling out of nowhere, right? That if WWE's making a pivot, it makes sense why it seems like they're hot-shotting CM Punk versus John Cena, because you would think they would have saved that for SummerSlam because they've had so much history at that PLE, right? But they're hot-shotting it to Night of Champions and with very little build. And I wondered why they were doing that and why he didn't show up. But maybe they're planning something with Ron Killings. You might be onto something, Skeener, that this is throwing a monkey wrench into a lot of things. And they could be adapting and trying to tell this story that has way more to do with Ron Killings interacting with Cena than just that step that we had, you know what I'm saying, like a month ago or a couple weeks ago.
And yeah, that's why I said we got to watch these next few shows to figure out what the hell's going on, because I don't have a good handle on what's going on.
Honestly, I don't either. We're spitballing here, but that's what we do here at the Lariat Lounge, guys. You come here to check us out, to hear what we got to say when we are spitballing ideas about this thing that we love, wrestling. I feel like this is a great time to be a wrestling fan, and it's a great time for you to be a fan of the Lariat Lounge. We are on episode 12 now. We're moving right along. Soon we'll be at 15. Soon we'll be at 20. Hey, if we keep this up, Skeener, we could be doing this for years to come because we're having so much fun and the fans are really getting involved. And you get involved by interacting with the podcast. Skeener, please let the people know one more time where they can interact with us each and every week.
We've got episodes dropping every week. Every Wednesday, we'll have at least one if you don't get a bonus episode in there. But you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. Send your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, criticisms, anything you want to yell at us. At the Lariat Lounge at gmail.com. We're on Instagram at the Lariat Lounge Podcast. Always getting stories and posts up. Always polls, questions on the stories. Love to hear your thoughts there. We'd love to get people involved. Start reading out some stuff on the show. Until then, you know what to do. Pull up a stool, get involved with the lounge.
Please let us know what you think and come back and check us out every week on the Lariat Lounge. We love to see you here. From Everson, Godfrey, and Andrew Skeens, this has been another episode of the Lariat Lounge. Please watch yourself on the way out.